Hey everyone, and welcome to another Yogi Misfit Sessions. My name is Danny Pomploon, and I'm your host. Today I'm coming at you with session number 66, and man, today's story is one powerful one. I've got Marshawn Feltus on the show. I'd like to give a big shout out to my friend Jeremy Falk, who made the connection on this one. Marshawn's got a really rad story. He was incarcerated for quite a while, and he was introduced to yoga while he was incarcerated. And he starts to talk about how it immediately changed his life and how he realized that yoga was not just for certain people, but actually for everybody. So since he's left incarceration, he's now started his own yoga studio in the south side of Chicago, which is serving a really big underserved community. He's doing so much good. He's helping a lot of people out, and it's been such a pleasure and an honor to have him on today's show. So thanks again, Marshawn, for coming on, man. Such a great and powerful story. And guys, make sure you check out Om Apparel. They're a men's movement-based apparel company, and they really got us covered from everything, including like yoga pants and just trousers, shorts, tops, vest, hoodies, backpacks. They really got everything just built for us. I've got a couple things that I love on there. One of them is specifically the Dharma pants. I wear them like at home. I wear them on the mat. I wear them on the go. I wear them at the airport. I wear them everywhere because they're the most comfortable pants I've ever worn. The other thing I really like about this brand is a lot of their clothes are all eco-friendly, and I'm totally down with that. So if you want to go check them out. And if you use the code DANNY15, that's DANNI 15, you'll get 15% off on your entire order. So go check out Om Apparel. This session would not be possible without your love and support. So please head over to iTunes and leave us a quick review. It just really helps the show gain a little more traction, and it lets more people know about the show. So if you can please head over there and give us a little love, that would be super awesome. And without further ado, here comes session number 66. Marshawn Feltus, man, you got a story.
Yeah, I'm living it.
Yeah, man, it's one hell of a story. I'm super glad that Jeremy Falk, he did the Libby tour and got to chat with you and got to know you a little bit better. But we were talking, and he's like, you got to interview this guy. He's insane and amazing and super. And then I read up about you, and I was like, I need to talk to this guy.
Well, that's awesome, man. I really appreciate those that hear my story and can extract from it, what I feel like is the most impactful part of it, rather than looking at it and saying, here again.
Yeah, I agree. You can always focus on the bits and pieces, but really it's about how it helps others.
Right.
So let's dive on in, man. I know you've got a lot going on. You're still in Chicago.
Yes, born and raised. I'm a concrete baby. That's me.
I've never, ever heard that before.
Yeah.
So you've got right now, you're opening up a yoga studio out there, if I'm not mistaken, right? Can you tell me a little bit more about it?
Yeah, we've been open for a handful of years now. And, we're the first yoga studio in our community. There's been yoga programs, but we're the first yoga studio, technically, in the Austin area of Chicago.
And it's an underserved community, I think.
Oh,
yeah?
Definitely, in many ways.
How are you seeing this? Like, I mean, one, how is it received by your community, and how do you see it impacting them directly?
Well, that's a bit complex.
Were people like when you first got there, were people like, what are you doing?
Yeah, pretty much so. So you're looking at people that have probably in any way, much like myself, I had only seen pictures of yoga, didn't really understand or know what it was. And then all honesty, I kind of thought that yoga was for, petite white women. Like I thought golf was for older white men because that was the image in which I seen. So trying to educate people in the community on the benefits of yoga and how it could prosper them has been it's been an upclimb.
I can imagine. I'm from East LA, and so it's definitely an underserved, very heavily Latino community, and I can only understand, like, when back in the day, if someone was to try to introduce me to it before I got into it, I would have been like, "What are you talking about? I don't have time to worry about this. I'm trying to figure out how we're going to eat together tonight."
My thoughts exactly. I was like, yoga, man, get out my face. I ain't trying to, That was my thoughts originally, but I'm so thankful that introduction weighed on me enough for me to stay involved in it. And it's been 10 plus years, and I just see it as a lifelong commitment.
I agree. I mean, it's hard. Like, I think what people forget is it's really hard to try to focus on spirituality or on self-care when really you're trying to figure out how you're going to stretch your food stamps out and how you're going to try to, get by the next few days, or, whatever it is. Like your problem load is not like, oh, I'm going to go to yoga and really focus on my mind. It's how am I going to get through today? How do I survive today, or whatever it is, until, you have somebody that introduces it to you and shows you that actually kind of alleviates some of the other tensions, or it's a tool and a technique to alleviate the other tensions. It was, I mean, for your life for sure. And definitely, for mine, I know that I would be on a way different path if it wasn't for yoga.
True that. And so that's the thing of trying to not so much teach people more than to show people where this can enhance the quality of their life. It doesn't omit anything, but it can greatly enhance. And so it encompasses mental, physical, and spiritual. And whereas to some people practice as a luxury, many of the people that I know, including myself, practice as a necessity. And so in times where people struggle to bring balance into their life, having a consistent practice is a thing that can be relied on, so that you're progressing instead of becoming stagnant or digressing.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't agree more. It doesn't make your problems go away, but the practice of, the physical discipline and the mental discipline can, make the power of being non-reactive that much stronger. And that then translates into, at the end of the day, the poses are poses. I say this a lot, but it's the mental benefits that you get from it, the knowing how to explore and inquire and critical think that makes everyday life choices maybe a bit easier, or you can finesse the decisions that you make because of that.
I want to say that it's a bit more inclusive to, well, even beyond that, it's experiential based on who's practicing. There are some people that come to class and they find it very difficult to sit still and meditate, but they thoroughly enjoy and receive all the benefits of the physical movements. And it's vice versa for some other people, and so the goal is to expose them to different techniques that could help them. When I'm in the jail teaching, one of the things that the guys say that helps them out the most is that I give them multiple styles for dealing with the noise around them and the chaos at times. And so my style has been to use, from experience, multiple styles of meditation so that they have more than just one avenue. They can use several, and hopefully that which has proven to work for them, it works well.
Yeah. So the studio now has been up and running. And I know you shared earlier, when you first got there, people were like, what is this and how's it going? And now it sounds like it's going and it's doing its thing. What have you seen in your community? Like how has it directly impacted these people's, I mean, I can only imagine, for sure, but you as a teacher and you as a facilitator and running this program and nourishing your community, like what were the first impacts that you saw and what are the impacts that you still continue to see?
So some of the first impact is it's like shock and awe. People come in and they're a bit skeptical, but it's a familiar thing to me because I started that way as well. And then to just kind of see people begin to relax and to absorb, it's profound for me. Because again, it's something that I experienced and know, and for now to be able to share with people, that impact is trending. My membership is very competitive in price. Well, in the sense that, I set it up based on people's ability to be there more than just sticking a package in front of them and say, hey, whether win, lose, or draw,
right,
you're dedicated to this. Most of the time, I find that I'm doing more yoga out of the studio than I am inside the studio. Yeah. And especially with the guys in the neighborhood, they'll have for instance, kind of questions. They'll say, hey, one of my friends said that, man, this yoga thing, man, it could help you out with your back, And I'm like, yeah, well, I could show you a couple of things, and next thing you know, we're on a street corner, doing a few stretches. And he's like, yeah, man, that's pretty decent there. And those type of guys, are rare to come to the studio. But anytime I can get the opportunity to mix it up with some guys out on the street, again, it's all forms of helping to market, not just the business, but a lifestyle that, people need to be exposed to bring balance to their life.
I always like to say, when people come in with an injury or they want to come in to do handstands or inversions or whatever, it's like the gateway drug into yoga. It's how they start. You know what I mean? It's always a physical thing. And then they're like, oh, and this actually makes my mind feel good. And oh, whoa, I can actually listen to my breath. And oh, here comes self-inquiry and everything else that goes with it, But it always starts with a physical movement.
Yeah. So, and that's true. A lot of the guys in the jail are first skeptical, and then you can see the transformation. It looks really good to see people absorbing the things that you're putting for them. I often look at it in a sense of what our parents desired for us to kind of do and be. And as we're living some of the values that they've instilled in us, that sense of satisfaction that they have by looking at, what they've taught us and what our life is becoming. And so when I see these guys, no matter what, there's guys that's facing 1 or 2 murders. There's guys that's facing petty theft. No matter what it is, all walks of life are pretty much a melting pot, because at the end of the day, you're responsible for your mental, physical, and spiritual progression. And so again, this is something that I wholly believe is a tool to help you, and that's why I'm committed.
How do you get the people in that need it most, and that they are skeptical about it? That they're not ready to hear it. How do you then sprinkle it in to get them? Because I mean, everybody needs this practice. You know that, I know that everybody needs this practice, and not just for the physical benefits, but again, all the other things that we talked about. But for the people that are, they're pushing away, what do you do to then nurture and foster that? Because you can tell as a teacher. I mean, at least I can, where I'm like, this person needs class.
It's genuine dialogue. I can't credit anything else other than genuine dialogue to start a conversation with people. Through conversating, people open up when they feel that the conversation is genuine, and they'll just kind of give you certain things about themselves. If you're strategic enough to just kind of keep the conversation pointed in a direction that you're extracting or trying to pull some of the issues of life out of the people, so that you can show them the benefits that you have for them. That's been the one consistent thing that has worked well for me, is just to talk with people and try to understand them as a person more than try to pitch something to them. Because if I was to pitch it from a business perspective to say, well, yes, you should come to yoga. You should come to this class because it does this, 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 and this. Yeah, well, I can't make it to your class and I don't have no money. Then I've lost, right? But if I talk to them and show them the value of things that they can do while standing in the grocery store, things they can do while riding in a car or at home, in school, doctor's office, then that's a bigger draw than to try to get them somewhere that they may not be ready for yet. But it's, again, been proven that, these techniques and things that I show people, a lot of people have found me out instead of me having to follow up with them. It's been people finding me out.
When you first, I'll kind of backtrack a little bit, like when you first got introduced to this, what was your first yoga class and what was your experience being in their shoes? Because now you've been doing this for 10 years, but I'm sure when you walked into it, you were just like, what was your experience like?
So I was incarcerated and I had been so for well over 15 years, and I was predominantly a power lifter. I was a power lifter, and it was more of a testosterone kind of power lifter where I just wanted to be able to put a house on top of a weight bar and throw it. I just felt like if I could stack 2 cars onto a bar, then, I could push that out of my way. But all of the injuries that came and there was a guy that came in and he was persistent about getting the yoga class started. And I thought this guy was clean out of his mind. I'm like, who is this dude thinking he going to come in here and start a what kind of class? But long story short, I eventually, like, what is this, man? Come on, dude, find some business somewhere, right? But eventually I took his class, and honest to God, my first yoga class was in a multi-purpose room with a crumpled carpet that was glued so tight to the floor that even the glue was gone, and just the fibers of the carpet and on the concrete was all that was left. And I didn't know anything about yoga mats, but we spaced out our sections with bath towels, which were as thin as the carpet that was on the floor. So we really had nothing. It was just a placeholder, really.
Sounds like you guys were at like the Ritz.
Right. The Ritz IDOC.
Yeah.
And so they started with the asanas, and eagle arms, I think, was one of, we stood from mountain pose, and then we put our hands up tall. And I just remember that first sequence of stretching my arms as high as I could get them. They didn't go all the way up, and then moving in from there into eagle arms. And I just thought that was just, man, that was the life. I was like, I've oftentimes said this as well, that if yoga was a woman, I would have married her, It was like,
yeah, totally.
That deep for me. I mean, just the sensation in the body of feeling the relief. I had been pumping iron so long that I was used to that. I was used to being tight. I was, tolerating and dealing with my injuries. Didn't want to take time off. Just a whole kind of bravado, male kind of ego of lifting weights. I look good, so that's all that mattered to me. But then to take on something that was so simple, just using my own body weight, I couldn't believe it. And after the first class, I was so content, so happy that I couldn't wait to get back into a class. And in a short period of time, I started to notice the benefits, whereas there was times where I couldn't sleep through a whole night. I found myself now sleeping through the whole night. The pain that I would feel from, like doing squats or walking upstairs, I noticed that, that pain started to go away. And then just the clarity, I would sit and focus and be intent on a conversation, whereas to other times I would be like, hey, come on, get to the point. I got to go. I got something to do. I was actually taking my time, becoming what I know now is more patient. But those kind of, subtle benefits that we could all use is something that I find myself having to come back to, because if you don't practice, that you start to lose. And so there's always something that reminds me to come back to my first love of yoga, and that's to keep practicing as often as I can.
One of my good friends, he's a teacher here in the city, Pete. I'll never forget. I took his class one day, and he's like, "I haven't seen you guys in a little bit, da 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 da." And he was like, "The good thing about yoga is," he's like, "if you, no matter when you're done, you're done, and when you're ready to come back, it welcomes you with open arms." And I just, that to me was like so profound. I was like, it's so true. It doesn't judge you. It doesn't say where were you or any of that. It's just like, okay, you ready again? Let's do this.
Yeah. It's infant-like in that way that. It's like a baby, you have a newborn, the baby doesn't mind too much. It just wants your company, and, it will give you a few, and a few, and then, it's infant-like in that way that it gives you these reminders of unconditional, hey, I want to be here for you, and that's real.
Have you started to train any teachers now in the way that you're in your style and also in the community to also help serve?
Yeah. We are, Aki Yoga has two full-time instructors and one is
that's
a
awesome.
partner. And so I'm trying to get more into the teacher training and developing a teacher's prerequisite course. It's like, what do I need to teach? Oftentimes, people ask me, like, what's it like teaching in urban area or, in Chicago, with so much violence and so many things contending with life. And it's like, well, there is a structure and a strategy. And so those things are techniques that I want to be able to show people. But, I still think that coming from your own personal practice is probably going to be the most sincerest and the most genuine that you can do. Of course, you'll need, some of the curriculums and things to help support you in that, but to keep people safe and to keep them progressive. But for the most part, I just think that, from your own set of standards, that's where your base is going to come from.
Yeah, your practice is your biggest teacher. I mean, you can go and study with anyone you want, but at the end of the day, if you're not implementing and experiencing that in both a mental, physical, and emotional way, you're not going to be able to speak to it.
Exactly. It's a doctor that, doesn't practice his own remedies. You got to look at him and question, like, well, why are you telling me this?
And the statistic is that doctors are sicker than their patients too.
What kind of doctor are you again? Yeah.
When you started to transition, from like, okay, physical movement, and then, whenever you started your journey to the teachings, what was that like for you, and how were you introduced to the teachings?
It was different. I was raised in a Baptist church. And so my values, my moral values in that sense, came from the biblical perspective.
I call myself a recovering Catholic.
Recovering. Okay. So now as I start to take on more, of, like the 8 limbs and the chakras and, just a broader understanding of what it means to be a threefold being, to bring balance respectfully to your spiritual, mental, and physical, because where there's unbalance, then there's dis-ease, and that dis-ease, we see many dysfunctions come to the body by way of that. And so I was happy to start a broader understanding that gave me a kickstand in life to look at, like, wow, this is awesome, because I was focused primarily just on the physical. I would throw up a in trouble prayer, like, man, God, if you get me out of this here, I promise I won't do that again.
Yeah, totally.
To kind of come to an understanding, like, hey, this is the great I am, and so I want to have a relationship that's a continuum more than just dip in when I need something or get me out of this here. And so all of these things coming to me has grown me in a way, and it's constantly growing me that, I'm living it as it's happening, and I really enjoy it.
One of the biggest takeaways when, well, I was always, again, like growing up really Catholic, and, like as I got older, I just strayed away from that because it was just shoved down my throat so much, and like you were a sinner or you were a good person, and that was it. There was no like space for in between, and then you had to go tell somebody your problems. It didn't work for me. And as I started to dip into yoga, I was like, well, is this like religious, and, uneducated about it. And I remember reading the Gita. And I remember when, Arjuna is like, well, what is all this? And Krishna was like, well, I don't have a word. There was no word for God. It was exactly as you said. It was the great you, is like the best version of yourself, basically, that whatever it is that you want to call it or you want it to be or whatever, it's the same thing, but it is the greatest version of you. And that to me was like, oh, I get it. This has no there is no, you have to follow this set sequence and do these things to become enlightened or whatever. It's, you just try, you just do the best with what you got.
Mm-hmm. So for me, wisdom being the principal thing is, you're looking at how to be led in life, and that comes through your spiritual connection. And so there's a lot of times controversy, especially in the Black community, about should Black people do yoga, especially if they're Christians. And, sometimes I guess I piss people off with saying, well, Jesus was a yogi, I mean, in the truest sense, and so it's a walk of life, whatever walk of life that you come from through your faith, it doesn't detract from it. There's Muslims that practice yoga, there's Buddhists, and we can run down all of them. And so for anybody that has a high level of concern, my simplest form of explaining it is you can go into any type of restaurant. Let's take an Italian restaurant. You go in and have a great Italian meal, or even if it was bad, when you come out of that restaurant, you are no more Italian than when you went in.
Yeah.
You had an experience, and it's the same thing in yoga. You're going to have an experience, and you get to decide what that is, how that's defined for you, and not the other way around. And if it is the other way around, then again, that's all the more reason that you need to take on some more responsibility to look at what your life, the value of your life, and how you're going to lead it.
Yeah. And you don't have to, you don't have to pick up anyone else's pieces. You just get to make it your own and see what's going to actually resonate with you. And whether that's one of the 8 limbs or whether that's the chakra system or whatever, that's the beauty of it, is there's so much there to explore.
Sure. Absolutely.
Marshawn, man, I can't thank you enough for taking the time out to talk on the show today and share your story. And I think what you're doing out there in Chicago is absolutely amazing. I couldn't agree with you more. I think everybody, specifically, underserved community, needs these tools and techniques just to, there's a sense of hope in it. There's a sense of strength in it, but also just a sense of ease in like you said, getting rid of the dis-ease and finding that path that you can walk on freely. I just appreciate all your wisdom and again, taking the time out and sharing with us today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. This has been a great experience. And so I'm looking forward to just kind of keeping it going and building and, letting the great I am lead me into whatever arena it is that I need to be in.
You got this, man. And again, we're all here to support it. we're all here for it.
Thank you so much, my brother.
All right, Marshawn, we'll talk to you soon. Until the next Yogi Misfit session, this is Danny and Marshawn saying peace out.